Welcome, everyone. Today we have Alessandro du Châtel joining us. He is a former psychology, criminal profiling, and computer science student with vast experience in risk management and pattern recognition. He is a passionate writer, producer, editor, designer, and filmmaker. Alessandro created Total Disclosure in early 2018 as a means to expose human trafficking, pedophilia, high-profile murders, and occult secret societies. Alessandro is a happily married 37-year-old conservative libertarian. He is a licensed private investigator, which gives him a strategic advantage for his important purpose of exposing this evil. As a fervent patriot, he strives to unite patriots worldwide to fight against the tyrannical New World Order and the World Economic Forum's Agenda 2030. So welcome, Alessandro. For people that haven't come across your amazing work, Total Disclosure, would you be able to share some of what you do and what people can find there? Because I come across your work probably about 18 months ago and I have just been following, and you have such
Well, I'm
incredible
flattered.
exposure of so many topics. And I'm hoping that some more people today can discover what you do, because you
Thank you.
such a wealth of knowledge, like very well researched. And I know when you present things, you've really looked into them, which is not always the case at the moment with all the disinformation
Exactly.
out there.
Well, there's a preference for short-term, short videos and fast consumption information, which there's not a big problem with that, but I see it too often on Instagram, and it makes for a very superficial research, I guess.
So true. I think they've really conditioned us to have such a limited attention span, and it's very
Exactly.
easy for them then to like put such a small amount of information in front of us that's a little bit
Hmm.
of truth and a lot of lies, and we're like, oh yep, that sounds good. It's like self-serving
Exactly,
mind
and then
control,
you have
isn't it?
people just resharing it, and it's like one of the things I've noticed. Well, thank you for the presentation, and I gotta say I'm flattered. I didn't know you were following my work for so long.
Yeah.
I'm a bit obsessive, I guess you can tell. I like going into details a lot, and I don't like feeling like I missed something, an important item of any investigation I do. Right now, I'm working on the documentary I had promised for years, which is the murders of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, tied to child sex trafficking, the cult in the music industry, of course, Hollywood and all that, involving people like David Geffen and Tom Hanks, the usual suspects. Um, After that, I'm probably gonna focus on the Calergy Plan, which is, as you probably are aware, the embedded migration agenda
Mm.
pushed by the Zionists, and that's something that is very relevant, especially here in Europe. Situation is dire. You see incidents happening every day in every country, and I don't know if in Australia it's hitting you as hard, but I guess it's similar. No.
We've definitely got the migration starting to come in, and our leaders
Mhm.
are advertising that. And I've shared some information on that because it's such a Jesuit setup. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all, they create the wars, they create all this displacement, and then there's all
Mhm.
the people that need to move, and then the media teaches us to like hate on the migrants, when the truth
Mhm.
is they're displaced and suffering because of what the powerful overlords are doing to destroy their countries and their families. So we are definitely starting to get that. And I know the government advertised that they spent $666 million on migration.
Oh,
I think they're putting it out
I.
there, with the numbers, like just letting
Oh, they love those
letting the
numbers,
cults
don't they?
know that it's a cult operation.
Well, of course, it's part of the problem reaction solution. What they do, and while yes, I guess there's a general notion that yes, this was produced and fostered by the military industrial complex. If they wouldn't have destroyed the Middle East, basically, and it all started with that damn day on September 11th,
Mhm.
2001, and that was the beginning of the end for the region, I guess, as we knew it. Because back then, I guess, people like Saddam Hussein and what was the other guy in Lebanon, or that they took
Yeah,
out.
I can't
Uh,
now.
well, of course, they were a bit. They had their cruel ways. They weren't perfect by any means, but I feel they had the region under control.
Mm,
Now we have this massive influx of migrants that, when you look at the boats, it's quite funny because you barely see any children and women. It's mostly
really?
military age
Yeah,
men, and
yeah.
some of them have admitted on camera that they're getting paid. I think it's 600 euros per week by one
Wow.
of the NGOs that works for the United Nations. So you start to connect the dots, and then you wonder: is this the UN army that is supposed to,
Yeah.
cause havoc in the West?
Absolutely. And we see that happening in America as well, with all of the traffic coming across the borders and
Oh
people
yeah,
reporting the same things, that they're being paid and organized by these same groups. Like it's just like when
exactly.
you go back financially and check out these so-called social issues or social movements, it's always the same names coming up, isn't it? Like the WEF, the United
Hmm.
Nations, the Jesuits, the Black nobility
Yes,
families, like unbelievable. Yeah,
they have their hands in everything.
they really do. They really do. And I know you've been really active, Alessandro, in exposing all of the controlled opposition that's out there.
Mm.
I think that is such an important thing. And it's also a hard job because I know, I've tried to do that in the areas that definitely affect survivors
Hmm.
in Australia. And there's so much dissociative cognizance. Like people just
Yeah,
want to admit that, so many
yes,
of the public figures put in front of us today were set up, that they're not who they're being put out to be. And,
exactly.
we're having so-called heroes put in front of us to lead the social, what's put out there to be an organic social movement, an organic truth movement. And once you've been in it for a little while and interacting with some of these figures, it's very clearly not the case. So I would
Yes.
love for you to share, because you have so much experience and you've really exposed so many. What do you look at in terms of, deciding and researching into someone, to find out, what their connections are? Are they controlled, or is this, actually some truth coming forward at this time? What do you sort of look at as the red flags? I would love to know.
I guess it's funny because it all started in the middle of 2018, I guess, and I was coming real fresh to the truther movement. I didn't even know what I was planning to do. I didn't know I was going to have podcasts or that I was going to make films. I was just trying to do whatever, to volunteer, to learn, to watch videos, to absorb as much as I could. And I decided to volunteer for the ITNJ, which, great first choice.
Yeah.
Great first choice to get to get
So
involved in this.
for people that haven't heard of that, that was the is it International Tribunal of National Justice, and that was
Yes.
Sasha Stone and
Led,
who was
yes, led by Sasha Stone and
mm,
his cohorts. Um, for me, it was very. I mean, I'm thankful for that being my first experience because it opened my eyes instantly. Um,
wow.
After a month or two, I clearly understood and felt that there was something very wrong with this circle of people. There was this cult-like behavior and adoration with Sasha. Nobody could, defy him in public. Nobody could argue anything that he ordered to be done. There was this constant push to move us to, for us that were focused on children, and wanted to get the truth out about satanic ritual abuse and child sex trafficking. They were trying to push us to the New Age side with Humanitat and other organizations. And I remember I just snapped one day and I said, "Hey guys, listen. To each of its own, but I came to do this for the children. I came to do this to expose child sex trafficking. I'm not into yoga. I'm not into crystals. I'm not into singing kumbaya in Bali. That's you. That's all you. And, I don't judge you for it."
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't like that. And I remember I was trying to expose a bit of the Hampstead case in England at the time, which was, I think it was just coming out to light. And I was immediately censored by Sasha himself. He told
Wow.
me that MI6 kicked his door down and threatened to put him in jail if he talked about it. So I was like,
Really? And then there's
is
so
that
many
so?
other people talking about it. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, we are the International Tribunal of Natural Justice. Like, if we cannot name names, like Isaac Cappy is over there singing names like a canary,
yeah,
and we're here with our mouth shut, like, what's the purpose? And then, of course, the very infamous testimony of Fiona Barnett happened.
yeah. And
And
see?
that's what was the catalyst for me, because I
Wow.
was already in touch with Isaac, who had just had falling out with Fiona. But then I started talking to Fiona Barnett, and I realized what they did to her testimony. They censored two or three names. They didn't let me know in advance, so I was
Wow.
running social media for them, publishing this testimony everywhere, and people were angry at me because they were like, "Hey, why did you censor these three names?" And I'm like, "I didn't censor anything." So, well,
Wow.
this video is censored, and they just blindsided me with it because they knew I wouldn't have agreed. And
Wow.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah.
it seem even more dodgy, right? Like that they didn't openly discuss it. It was just taken out, and then
That's
you're here
very telling.
uploading the
Yes,
interview.
exactly, very telling, because I was like, well, I do work for you. I mean, I'm a volunteer. It's not like I'm gonna put a stop to it, but I actually did. I saved the testimony without the censor names. Fiona also saved a copy.
Yeah.
So after a month, I just sent them a letter to quit, and asking them about all these accusations that being online about Sasha stealing funds from the company, the former president of the organization in the United States, with all this evidence and the blog that she wrote. And of course, Sasha only had insults and threats to go along with it. So I said, there's something very fishy in here. So I decided to just go and research the guy. And wow, what we found, it's still to this day, people go to my website just to read those articles. And at the very least, it's less souls scammed by this guy. So
Mhm.
I'm happy about that.
Absolutely. You did such a good job of bringing together all the information, and I'll pop the links to your articles about the Fiona Barnett incident where names were removed. And I believe those names were they were from the UK, right? In the end, it was
They
abusers.
were
Um,
involved with the royal family of Jordan,
wow.
because Sasha's girlfriend is related to such family.
How
So
interesting.
that was the connection. That's why he couldn't put those names out there, because it was a family matter.
Wow. That's nuts. And just knowing the way people are set up in, public positions to be handled, isn't that interesting that he has that relationship to that
Yes.
family through a partner? Incredible.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Like he has been, I guess he has been bred for that position of new age guru uh, for ever since he was a child. And I don't know if you're familiar with Jessie Sevotar. I guess
Mhm.
that's how you pronounce her name. There's a testimony of hers saying that she formed part of this group of three children who were partaking into these rituals, and all of them, well, the other two were Elon Musk and Sasha Stone. So that right there tells you that the guy was meant for bigger things, I guess. And if I happen to derail that a little bit, well, I'm very happy about
That's exactly what you need to do, right? But yeah, I think that's
yeah,
the realization that we need to have, is that so many people in these public positions with huge followings, because that's fairly abnormal with the algorithms as well, are born and
yes,
bred for these roles, and they have masters that they answer to. And
absolutely.
I can speak about my personal interactions with Sasha. Listening to your story, Alessandro, reminds me very much of my own, because in 2019, a year later, I was very fresh. I was like, yep, I'm going to be active, and I'm going to speak about these horrible
Yes.
crimes against children. And, at that stage, I knew I was a survivor of child sexual abuse. I hadn't recalled my own ritual and cult abuse as a child, but I was like, that's enough. I can go out and speak about that. And
Of
very
course.
quickly, like within 3 or 4 months of associating myself with, I met some people from Operation Underground Railroad, and that's
Oh, yes.
a complete scam. And obviously, we know that that's
Uh-huh.
all nestled in with Tim Ballard and the Mormons and a whole lot. But when
Yes,
you're
Glenn
when you're
Beck and
fresh,
everyone.
you're fresh, you're kind of like, oh, it's so great that people are out there and they're trying to make a difference. And
Mhm.
we had a petition going through Parliament that Andrew Wilkie presented, and that was around all of the mind control and the ritual abuse that thousands and thousands of Australian children have endured. And this was all suppressed in a royal commission, so we're trying to get them to release that information. So during that time, we had that case also presented to the International Criminal Court, so the ICC,
Mhm.
which is run by the United Nations, actually, when you
Mm.
go far enough. And I was contacting Sasha because he was speaking out about pedophilia. He had his ITNJ. So I'm like, oh, this guy's actually doing something. He'll either be
Mhm.
able to help with some publicity or maybe some leads.
Exactly.
Such poor communication. He's out there doing these videos about arise Homo sapiens, Australians, you can do it. I'm there
Oh
trying
my.
to get hold of this guy for 3 to 4 months. His team dodged me. And I was like, yeah, he just doesn't want to be involved. It's too hot to handle. And then I finally got through to someone and I made a complaint. I'm like, look, people aren't getting back to me. And I thought it was actually someone in the office that was maybe,
Uh-huh.
infiltrator.
Trying to block it.
That's right. And I
Yes.
got through to
Yeah.
Sasha. Sasha was like, yep, I'll look into it. I'll be all over it. This is really important. This is, an important case. And here I'm thinking he might actually bring this court case through his common court, which was setting up at this time in Australia. Completely ended up dodging me for months. I waited, nothing happened. I was speaking to his team, who I think his team here in Australia are great. Potentially some of them don't really know who the real Sasha
Mhm.
is, and they were like me, just
That
first
happens a lot.
thinking.
I think that happens a lot. It's a fair
Yeah,
assessment that a lot of the people that work with Sasha have no idea,
that's
especially the
right.
ones in the background.
Yeah, and they were really helpful. They were wanting this case to get tried in a common court, or even if that couldn't happen for whatever reason, I don't understand if it's your court, but at least to publicize what we were doing, because it's pretty big that that case made it to the International Criminal Court. And
Mhm.
so in the end, along with all of the other figures in Australia that were speaking out publicly about pedophilia, so Ricardo Bossi, Sasha Stone, the whole lot, no one wanted to
Mhm.
touch it, completely shut down. And that's when
Of
I was like,
course.
I need to research this guy and find out what's going on, because this is a total red flag. This is a brilliant opportunity. He could have at least done
Mhm.
an interview with me or publicized what was going on. But no, completely, it was too hot to handle. And I was like, yeah, I believe he's part of the system. And the more I looked into it,
Of
and
course.
thankfully with amazing research from people like you, Alessandro, it just confirmed what I'd seen with my own eyes. And people wouldn't believe, like, what happens with these figures, because they're out there and they're trained, they're trained to do these passionate speeches and it sounds so great. And he's using all these,
Absolutely.
I love your term, $10 words. Like, you get
Yes.
sucked into listening to them because they're trained to speak. But when it
Exactly.
comes to action, straight away
Yeah.
did not want to help in any way. I know his team in Australia were really disappointed, and they were even saying to me, we have concerns
Mhm.
now because his hands are either tied or he's not on the right team. So I don't
And
know if
that's the
the
thing.
people I
Yeah.
originally spoke to years ago are still with him or not. But yeah, that's
His behavior
actions
is
speak
very
louder
good.
than words, right?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. He always, I think he used to be more cautious, but now for the last 3 or 4 years, he has been overplaying his hand,
Mm,
and I think it has to do a lot with the fact that this guy, he's not a brilliant guy by any means. He's a narcissist. He is slightly above average as far as being smart or not, but this training that you mentioned,
mm.
this kind of mind control trance like state in which he likes to put his listeners to, for me,
Yes.
it's like listening to nails on a chalkboard,
Yeah.
because I just hear this blabber and this pretty words, but the substance,
Yeah.
when you just put it apart, the whole speech, nothing, there's nothing in there. It's only things to make you buzzwords to sound clever, to put people in a state of despair and hope at the same time,
Mhm.
which is very you know kind of a Stockholm syndrome that he
Yeah.
likes to do on people. And for me, it was like when we started working together, he was like, "Hey, Alessandro, you and I have so much in common. We were both rock musicians. We know what it is to deal with that life, and now we're turned away and helping children." And I was like, "But this guy is like telling me everything I want to hear.
Mm.
There's something off in here." Because it was like the second meeting, and I was like, "But why is this guy like love bombing me if I'm a nobody?" Because at the time, I really nobody knew who I was. That's why I was able to get in there, because if you look for Alessandro du Châtel on the internet, there nothing came up. Nothing came up. Maybe my a job that I had in Costa Rica or something like that, but they had no idea what was coming, I guess.
Yeah, and they probably didn't expect someone, to ask questions and do the research. And that's really what, these speeches and, like you said, the way that they put people into that hypnotic kind of trance of just listening
Mhm.
to them, it becomes such a comfort. And that's why people keep tuning into people like Sasha Stone and Russell Brand. And we've got all our own Australian versions of them here. And
Mhm.
once you actually have done the research and you know what's going on, like I can listen to that and like what you said, Alessandro, it's just words. There's no substance, there's no real information there. It's all just la la that sounds good and big words that make people think that they're taking in information, but there's nothing
Mhm.
there. It's not hitting any
Exactly.
of the real information that actually needs to come through at this time. And,
Exactly.
I even question, anyone with these big platforms, like, why aren't they getting the testimonies of real people that have lived this out there? Like,
Exactly. And
they just interview each other, like, oh, this week it's like Sasha Stone
exactly.
interviewing this other
It's
big
like this
figure.
circle
Oh,
jerk. It's an obnoxious circle jerk, and they just
yeah,
work with one another, and
yeah.
they, of course, they promote one another like the greatest thing ever. That's how they grow their base, and that's how they seem so, I guess, huge to people. But because when you see a channel that has 10,000 followers, it doesn't make the exact same impact as one with 4 million, like Russell Brand or something like that. And especially like this story of Russell Brand. Oh, I was this actor, this comedian. I was a degenerate, but now I'm this like super zen kind of a activist for truth and justice. Which, when you see his girlfriend, I believe it is, or is he married? but I guess his girlfriend is 2 degrees away from the Rothschilds, and
Exactly right.
it's completely crazy. And then he goes about this story about, oh, I got a tattoo with the number 33, but it's not because I'm a Freemason. It's
No, not
because
at all.
it's it's a tribute to Jesus Christ because he died when he was 33. And I'm like, well, one of the reasons why the Freemasons use that number is exactly to mock that. So I don't know.
Exactly. And then with Russell Brand, he's got his book, The Pied Piper of Hamelin, and it's all black and white checkers, and even the Pied
Mhm.
Piper story, it's not something that you want children to be listening to.
Absolutely.
Like, now that we know, and that's the thing, these people, they do tell us who they are, and we know satanically, that is the
That's the
ritual
thing.
mocking. They have to. But then
They have to.
people make that choice. They're like, no, I'm comfortable here. I like listening to him. And so you
Mhm.
actually consciously choose to stay in the spell. And that's what they
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. And people are just afraid of going outside of YouTube, I guess. For some people,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, Rumble, I don't like it. BitChute, ugh. And I guess, with this control opposition agents, it comes down to the symbolism, and it comes down to their past. Their past never checks out. They have these weird relationships. Like, for example, Russell Brand has this horrible interactions with Jimmy Savile. Not
Yeah,
to mention, he was the husband of Katy Perry, who we know is involved in all this
exactly.
uh, cannibal shenanigans that they have there in Hollywood. So for me, it's impossible to consider that if this guy was married to this lady and even had the possibility of being close with Jimmy Savile, who, for all for all we know, was the procurer for the royal family in England,
Mhm.
um, along with Robert Maxwell, of course. Um, it just doesn't click. It just doesn't click with me, and they always have to do these things in which um, they have to flaunt it somehow because I guess it's also part of their Gillian dialectic kind of thing, hitting in plain sight, karmic retribution. But at the same time, I also think that they enjoy it, that they enjoy
Yes.
to put it out there and to smile at the camera and for people to see it and don't care. I mean, they
Yeah.
love me so much they wouldn't care. I could probably kill somebody in front of them and they wouldn't care. Just like Trump said, pretty much,
Mhm.
that he could shot someone in the middle of New York City and nobody would care.
People just choose not to listen to it, right? And it's a ritual mocking, and it's nuts.
Exactly.
It's so nuts. And I think once you start seeing how many controlled assets are out there, and just the millions, billions probably of dollars they've spent in setting
Yeah.
up this so-called organic truther movement to be led and misled
Hmm.
by certain
Hmm.
characters. It'll give you like a little bit of truth and then a whole lot of lies, and completely mislead you, keep you inactive. It's like a massive, apathy program where people just check in and they think they're doing something because they listen to Sasha Stone or Russell Brand's videos. And it's like, that's actually just brainwashing yourself. It's like self-serve mind control. And we were actually
It
having a
just has
little
to.
chat before we started, and we were saying it's so frustrating because I feel like, people broke through, Sasha Stone and realizing that he was, controlled opposition 2 years ago. But now I see like
Exactly.
there's a next wave of people waking up. And who do they go
Exactly.
to? They go to these big platforms. Someone will recommend, oh yeah, listen to Sasha Stone, listen to Russell Brand, listen to Ricardo
Hmm.
Rossi, because they've got their
Exactly.
name out there and they're doing interviews with all the other big
Exactly.
platforms.
And
And then
if
they
they
get
go to
shouted out.
YouTube, exactly, if they go to YouTube, for example, you still are there, but for sure, YouTube is shadow
I have
banning
no
you.
idid how.
Me
I
neither.
think I'm,
Me
yeah,
neither.
I'm
I
getting
was already
close to
taken
being
out three
exited.
times. And it's funny because that you mentioned the waves, because
Mhm.
one of the things I was discussing with my wife in regards to these characters, because she loves that work that I do with them. She just doesn't like them. She's not fond of them.
That's good.
We were
Keep
discussing.
up with
Yeah,
it.
you came about around 2019, you were saying, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So just like months after me. So I was just a few months before you, and there was like this first wave of gatekeepers, which
yeah.
were pretty much Sasha Stone, Liz Crokin, Craig Sawyer, Gabe Hoffman, Timothy Holmstead, all
Mm.
these guys
Charlie
that were
Ward,
like,
I'm remembering him from the start
yes,
too. Yeah,
absolutely. And this was like, I guess, like a test, because these were like in a war. You send the usually you
yeah,
send the pawns first to test the waters, and those who survived, like Sasha, I guess, because I thought he was buried by now, but
yeah,
apparently he's trying to make a comeback. But now they push forward this second wave
yeah,
of guys that, Russell Brand, Elon Musk, Donald Trump is there. You have
yeah.
Joe Rogan, you have Andrew Tate, people that are just way more heavy, way more involved in the cult. Uh, the cognitive dissonance that I see with Andrew Tate is just astounding.
Oh, I can't
Uh,
believe it. Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was a shocking one for me. Like, I remember sharing some articles about him, and like people got really aggressive. That's when I
yeah,
knew the
yes,
mind control was strong. Is like, I
yeah.
don't
Oh,
take it personally from people. I'm just like, you are really under the spell. Like, when you
yeah,
can't even look at this and realize it, like Greta Thunberg and stuff, like that
mhm,
it's a psyop. Like, come on, guys. Like, we need to get
exactly.
smarter.
And he's just catering for those disenfranchised, I guess, male
Yeah.
conservative libertarians who are not necessarily religious, and they're looking for that kind of debaucherous lifestyle that has nothing to do with being conservative. It's a
Mm.
bit funny because you see all these guys that are now all of a sudden they say they are conservatives because they are financial conservatives. They don't like high taxes. They don't like how things are going in the
But
states
life's up.
financially. But when it's time to have integrity and have some common decency, they couldn't be more liberal.
Exactly.
And and people still follow them. So at the end of the day, what I've decided is just that these political sides and this political um, um, fake dichotomy, that if you are a leftist, you must be against the right, and the other
Yeah,
way around. I decided, hey, listen, I'm out of politics. I'm just gonna
yeah,
focus on exposing the bad guys on both sides. And if I sacrifice followers, if I sacrifice going viral and making some Trump people angry, so be it. At the end of the day, I sleep like a baby, and I guess that's what matters.
absolutely. The truth has to count for more, right? And I think it is that hard choice. Like, you could cover things that are political and know that you would get a huge amount of views. And that's something that I've really had to learn over the past years as well. But it's not truth. It's not really what I believe is the most important thing to be covered at this time. And that
Exactly.
is, that's when you sleep well. That's when you know you're doing God's work at this time, and God's will for what needs to be exposed, and not being directed by, the likes and the followers. And
Exactly.
we don't want to end up like these figures that we're talking about, right? So
Exactly.
someone's got to stand
And,
in integrity and truth and get the it's often the
and you,
hard things to say out too, right? Like, it's
exactly.
not
That's the
easy to
thing.
go out and say this person's controlled opposition and know that you're probably going to deal with the next month of like people slagging
Mhm.
and trolling you, but someone has to
Exactly.
do it.
Well, I that's the thing. You don't want to, because the thing is that when you pick political sides and you want to be liked by a certain demographic,
Yeah,
you are setting, you're bounding yourself
yeah,
to be able to talk or not be able to talk about certain things or certain people. And that's what I noticed. For example, that was part of my disagreement with my previous partner, Nick Albier, who I basically met 3 years ago because I was a writer, he was a filmmaker. He cannot write. I couldn't make films at the time, so we said, "Hey, let's join up. You like my script? You can make it into a film." He made a bit of a joke out of it. I guess my wife and I weren't very pleased, but I still I still had some hopes that he wasn't controlled, I guess. And then January 6th came about,
Yeah.
and I was already super ready to get out of the Trump train and all this BS, because I said, well, if this election thing they really let it be stolen, because that's what happened. They let it be stolen. It was stolen because they didn't do nothing about it. Trump and his butt buddies over there at the White House and all his controllers and the scientists that pull the strings on both sides of the aisle. Um, I warned him, do not go to this J6 thing. You're gonna get nailed. And indeed, he got arrested for it. And guess what? Out of hundreds of people that were arrested on that day in the subsequent weeks and months, he's the one that got the lowest time in prison, 45 days. For Nick Albier, considering his career as a truther and as someone that was exposing pedophiles and all that, you have to wonder
Isn't that
how come they let it.
interesting?
It's very interesting, right? And when we had this disagreement, it all started because he was trying to push me into covering Trump in a good light on my social media. He
Mm.
also wanted me to stop talking about the Kalergi plan and this migration issue. He said it was too divisive and it wasn't good for the brand. And he was just pushing this psyop about Trump being the commander in chief, and Derek Johnson, some weirdo cowboy control position new guy that just popped up out of nowhere. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Um,
And I was already having a hard time because my dad just passed away because of the vaccines like
um,
5 months ago.
I'm sorry to hear
So
that.
thank you. I mean, it's, we all have someone, I guess at this time we all have someone that has been affected by this bullshit.
Yeah,
And of course that makes it more personal. And
yeah,
for me it was like, no, there's no way I can talk positively about Trump anymore with all this pushing of the vaccines even after 2 years later. I'm sorry, but I just can't. And the relationship just crumbled down. The guy got arrested again in May for federal probation violation. And it's crazy because I have the text right there of the guy saying, "Hey, my girlfriend stole $2,000 worth of drugs from my apartment and shit like that." And I'm like, well, I
yeah.
don't think I should be working with this guy anymore. And I was in this position where I have to keep a roof over my head. And of course, he's the half owner of all my films that I did with him. I guess that was the agreement. He was the producer. I produced probably like 350 videos in 2 years
Wow,
for the
you've
brand.
been busy.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do 4 or 5 videos per week and
Yeah,
just print them out like candy. I guess now I'm a bit tired, so I'm taking it slow now that nobody's paying me to just be rushed.
yeah,
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that no matter how much you try to save someone or to make them see the light, like if they are already dead on set on following a certain figure, or they have links with certain shady individuals. Like I knew that this guy was texting with Roger Stone on a weekly basis. So I'm like, well, Roger Stone has been participating in psychological operations since the 1970s. So J6, this guy comes out of jail 45 days later. Now all of a sudden my films are behind a paywall. He's not promoting my films. So who wins in this case?
mm,
Well, the people I'm exposing are not really being exposed because almost nobody's watching the films. They're being put almost in a cage. And
and we know
I
the
basically
cults
spoke
do too. Is they actually will come in and buy stuff up or take control of information so they can
exactly,
actually hide it from being put
exactly.
out there. So that's so interesting, Alessandro. And I just makes me wonder if this character was completely just set up and sent in to try and take you off track.
No, and there's always things that one can do to like one of the things that I like doing, and that if you're into exposing control opposition agents, you always have to try to think like them, but like to figure out what they enjoy the most, what's that drug that they're after, if it's attention, if it's ego, fame, money, and then you can more or less predict their next moves and see why they did the things that they did. And so obviously we were having this big division. I was trying to get my films out of his website, and we had all this drama online. And I was like, well, you know what, I'm going to open a website and I'm going to call it totaldisclosure.tv, because his website is goodlion.tv. So I just waited for 5 days to see if he bit, my bait, because I knew that he was going to try to buy it. And surprise, surprise, he bought the domain to take it away from me. But he
Really?
made a tear mistake. Yes, he bought it through his handlers. So it turns out that the
Wow.
company the domain was bought into is associated with Lockheed Martin.
No way.
Yeah,
Jeez,
yeah.
that's the
So
thing, all of this new age stuff and these people, and I mean, the whole Q movement is part of the new age as well. Like, it's all
exactly.
backed by military contractors. Like, when you go back, like Boeing, Lockheed and Martin, Raytheon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not love and
Mm-hmm.
light. Whoa, that was
Exactly.
quite a find then, seeing that.
Yeah. Of course, I saw that the website was bought, and I said I'm gonna go and get the IP address immediately, and I was able to get it. I don't know why they didn't hide it. I don't know if they were underestimating me, which is a bit stupid with my past exposing Sasha and all these people. So, uh, I mean, thankfully, I mean, if I look dumb, I'm really thankful for it, because at least it gives me the chance
It
to
helps.
to
It's
move
your edge.
faster than they think. But that's in the past. Now I guess I got what I wanted, which was confirmation that I was working with the wrong person for the wrong reasons. Well, for the right reasons actually, but nevertheless, how much change can you do if they're trying to micromanage every single content that you want to put out there? And past that point, it wasn't sustainable. I'm a Christian. I'm not I'm not out there with a Bible trying to convert people and evangelize them, because I think, like I said to my wife, that's not my job.
Yeah.
I make films, I do research. I'm a fighter. I'm not a priest. Like, if there's a priest among us, please take your rightful place and help me with that, because I'm not the one to be converting people. But basically, Nick was out there mocking Jesus Christ and mocking Christians, and I was like,
Wow.
and comparing Trump to Jesus, and like,
Oh,
but it
that
was
drives
super
me.
blasphemous
Yeah.
imaginary on Instagram, and I was like, dude, like, are you trying to get people pissed off? Or like, half of our base are Christians, half
Yeah.
of the people that follow us are Christians. And I was managing the emails from the company, and it was email after email after email of people angry saying, hey, I cannot support you guys anymore because Nick is just out there insulting, tainting everything that the Bible and Christianity means for me. So it was many things at once. And of course, then the relationship ends and he goes running to work with Sasha, which was quite interesting, I must say.
Did they know each other beforehand? Because was Nick around when you were, that was after you worked for ITNJ for those 4 months,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Nick came around. I guess Nick came about in early 2020. He went viral right away, which is a bit strange, I guess.
Mm,
And that's what happens with these figures, right? They just
yeah.
come out of nowhere. And then he started working with Charlie Ward, which,
Right.
of course, is a direct link with Sasha Stone.
Yeah.
And he has this girlfriend who is a Hindu lady from England. Al Pasoni, who they sell this snake oil product to heal to well, they promote it as healing autism. So imagine you can tell there's a lot of things to expose over there, because as far as I know, there's no cure for autism yet. Not that I do not support anyone trying to find cures for diseases like this in a natural way, but
Mm,
exploiting children for sales doesn't really jive with me either. So for me, the confirmation was that, yeah, he went right away to work with Sasha Stone, and now they're promoting the New Age movement and the whole disclosure of the aliens and all this nonsense that comes with Project Bluebeam, all
exactly.
wrapped up in a pretty package.
Yeah. And that's what it always seems to lead back to, doesn't it, with these assets is, they're giving a bit of truth about the children and about trafficking. And then it's like, which psyop are they leading you into? Is it the new age?
Exactly.
And the new age is leading everyone into the whole alien nonsense agenda as
Exactly. They
well.
go hand
So,
in hand with the Q and the Trump Space Force, and now Elon Musk and SpaceX and all this nonsense. It's all very well connected. It's very well crafted.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you mentioned the word distraction, because there's so much controversy surrounding Russell Brand and the various opinions that surround him. Where, who does he work for? Is he controlled opposition? And so let's begin with that. What are your thoughts with all the media frenzy that's going on? And you're no stranger to controversy, neither is Nick. If I'm allowed to say, how do we deal with this? And what is all of this about?
If the question's for me, I can tell you that after a long and studied consideration of the nature of low frequency elements that come at you through, it could be very pedestrian trolling. Some of it even could be AI bot algorithms that have been set against the platforms that we work on. That's a very real and present threat to our voices being able to get out there. They're also very low frequency human beings, I'd say subhuman beings, who themselves are the utility of the devil without even being aware of it. They're largely demonically possessed. I could name half a dozen who've said about trying to destabilize my good and noble work over the last, certainly the last 10, 11 years that I've been more or less public, because my work began in 1999. So, properly, when I formed a Humanitad and began my work in kind of citizen diplomacy and, trying to work on fellowship initiatives between governments and faiths and traveling around the world, doing all this work that I've been doing. But
now my face is on it and I'm everywhere, and Good Line has been created. And I've encountered my first nemesis, someone who was once close to me, someone I vented to in my depths of PTSD and loneliness. And that guy has gone full Monty on his attempts to bring me down in his words. But when this was all started happening, I looked at Alpa and I said, this is a level up. Something's happening and I'm about to level up. One of my best friends committed suicide, and I thought, this is crazy. And then this happened. This guy started doing his thing, and I just thought, this is the genetic makeup of a level up. Something's going to happen. And then this movie came out, and it was almost like the fuel that propelled me to keep making this movie. Was the anger I had to be channeled, and I was super angry, and I didn't have anything to do with this anger. So I remember there were days I'd rather just stay in bed and I'd think about this asshole, and it got me out of bed. So I used this anger to my advantage, and it really helped on that level up. So you've had this kind of thing happen, and even this guy I'm speaking of tried to do that to you. And how did you first deal with it, and then and what kept you going, even despite how nasty it gets?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Again, there's half a dozen individuals who've made it their lives. We call it in French, it's called the bas métier, the kind of reason for their existence has been to try to defile and desecrate the taproots of my noble work. And that's fine. I've seen that from day one for what it is. I call it counterpoint geometry. You're talking about the balding little rat who's been after you lately. He's a piece of shit human being, subhuman. And at the appropriate time, his head will be removed surgically from his neck. But I think he'll do unto himself before anyone needs to do anything. He steps over the line beyond a certain measure, and he'll find himself in a prison cell or possibly worse. But again, these elements have a tendency to do unto themselves. And it really behooves anyone in the flame of wisdom to simply hold counsel. Hold counsel. I mean, I've been accused of everything under the sun by multiple different career trolls, a couple of whom we have put investigators onto and seen who's financed them, and what their genesis is, and what their motive could possibly be. And some of it stems from deep state. Others is just very disenfranchised little tits like the one you're describing, who are in and of themselves entirely unrealized. So they can only dream up blogs or go and try and, again, desecrate the taproot of other people's work. But I see that as being a service. It's definitely a service to me. And in a sense, it's a service to the public. And I'll explain why. Because the way I see it, these creepy crawlies come in, start their blog threads, do their slanders, dream up or manufacture all sorts of heinous shit, try to patchwork your life story or what they think it is. Like my sister, who's downstairs right now, entertaining our design team and some investors and friends who are here at the New Earth Sanctuary. She's supposed to be an arch Satanist who makes, sculptures of demonic mythological creatures. My mother is supposed to have been a child bride of some fucking Rockefeller guy. My dad is supposed to be I can't remember the name, some scion of the Rockefeller dynasty. No, my dad's alive and well and living in Anglia, in England. My mum's alive and well, living in the Portuguese hills. We're a sweet multi-generational African family, just getting on with our own, evolution in this vale of tears. And yet we can be targeted because of me by complete nobodies who patchwork a fantastical reality, sell it through their own threads and their own blogs and what have you. Ignorant people, stupid people, low frequency people. And don't forget, laws of attraction, baby. It's always laws of attraction. So people on my networks and in my ecosystem who gravitate toward that kind of thread, those kinds of stories about me, about my family, about my genesis, they start to witter and twitter and cast aspersions and speak amongst themselves and conflate reality into this shadowy realm. Sasha is a scion of the Vatican and a crown agent, and I arrange assassinations whilst I'm not being a kiddie pornographer, obviously, and all these other things. So they throw every single fucking thing at you, and you're just being you and doing you and walking in a straight line, as I've done for 24 years. I don't know many truthers out there who've had the temerity or the arrogance or the sheer bloody mindedness to simply walk in a straight line for a quarter of a century and still look okay and feel okay about everything. I mean, I'm a foundationally positive guy, and I've been to hell and back multiple times. So what's the net? The net is Sasha Stone is doing fine, baby. Obviously, I'm graced with the angelics. Obviously, the road rises up to me. Obviously, I continue to expand and augment the voice that I have that is hard fought and hard won. And life is beautiful. And everything I'm involved with is affirmative and creative and expansive. And I'm just in a fucking blissful state, Nick, whilst the rest of the world appears to be going to hell in a handbasket. So that's the net result. Take the life and times of these pernicious little nefarious tits that we're talking about. What's the net for them? I can tell you it's clutching their little gut or jacking off their little penises in the Sabbatean basement, desperately trying to vicariously live through my cock or your cock. And I'm being rude and reductive because actually if the great Freud or even Carl Jung were to look in on something like this, they would bring it back to the pee-pee and the poo-poo, the capacity to do good shit and to get your kundalini moving. So most of our childhood traumas are anchored in the anus and the penis, fact, or the vagina. So when we get down to that, I know that these creatures are still lost to themselves. There's no kundalini moving. There's no sexual expansion. There's no elevation of consciousness, much less the beautifying of life. And I genuinely look over my shoulder at these creatures with a degree of real, almost compassion, but certainly pity. That said, do I want to turn around, climb down off my Jacob's ladder, get into the mud, and try to defend the indefensible? Why would I do that? So there we have it. I'm likely now, yesterday or 2 days ago, I was shown the biggest private collection in the world of extraterrestrials. So over 300 artifacts. I was taken into this private facility and I was shown the mummified aliens, and I was handling them, and over 300 alien artifacts. The greatest collection you could possibly imagine. The world knows nothing about this. I put up some enigmatic images on social media, and what I did, just to take the piss out of my own folks, what I said was, let me just read this to you because it's kind of funny. I said, my comment on the behind the pictures was, can't say who, can't say where. All I can say is that I was there. Can't say when, can't say how, but I can tell you it's any day now. So I was putting out there just a little thing, a teaser, that disclosure, hard disclosure's coming. It's a beautiful thing. It's an empowering thing. Oh my God. I woke up yesterday morning to a barrage of trolling, the likes of which I've not seen before. And all it was me showing 4 or 5 photographs to my social media networks of artifacts, alien artifacts, and things that I'd personally gone and witnessed and studied the forensics on. Like, I got on a plane, I went there, I was taken in to meet these folks. It's not easy to hack your way in there, people. You know, I'm not working for the fucking Vatican. I went to go and see for myself and touch for myself. And I got such an onslaught. I did more block, ban, and deleting yesterday morning on social media than I've done in 10 years. And it was great. I thought, well, now I've managed to triage again, cut away the fat from, you know, from my own private networks. And the rest of my folks are just really privileged and say, thank you. We love this journey. Talk to us when you're ready. When, you know, I can't just start spouting names and places. People will get killed, for God's sake. But anyway, that's just an illustration of what we're dealing with. We're at the frontier now of mass revelation. It's going to be happening within the next few short years. I happen to know it's before the year 2030, 27, 28 is almost certainly the nexus point. And we're going to be entering into put it this way, a conceptual framework is going to descend onto humanity, the likes of which we cannot even imagine right now.
And I do think that people underestimate the danger of the New Age movement. For some reason, they think that a lot of those practices are totally harmless, when in reality, every single one of those practices are windows that you are leaving open for things to come through your life and just create havoc. And I don't know if you experience anything in your life related to the New Age, but at least in my case, I remember that when I was still into rock and roll, and I was singing in a band in Costa Rica, and having all these bad habits and bad behaviors. Not only I was surrounded with people who were going to play in Lollapalooza and all these big festivals in the States, I was participating in music videos that were full of occult things, occult symbolism, without even me knowing. And you know, then 5 years later, I see these videos and I see my old friends doing all these symbols and all these things, and I'm like, how I never,
like, I was there. Oh my God.
yeah, it's like how I never noticed that these people were acting so fucking weird. And you know, for the most part, I guess I was too drunk to notice. Thankfully, the best decision of my life was to just quit that scene, and I decided to stop the band, and I decided to just try to find something else to fill me up.
Wow. That's the thing, isn't it? Looking back, like we've had these symbols all around us for a lifetime, but they've been, communicating with our subconscious minds, but we just haven't consciously had the knowledge to unlock what they're all about and unlock, who it leads back to and the networks. And, that's the thing with the New Age. It's selling all these really old Babylonian ideas into the current society, and they are really dangerous. They're teachings from fallen angels, and people are just bringing it into their homes, bringing it into their lives, and not recognizing the consequences it's going to have on opening doors in their lives. But what about your children's lives as well? Like, after you've opened up to various entities through various practices, that's something they're going to have to deal with too. So yeah, if people haven't researched the New Age, please do. I mean, I know I had no idea how nefarious it was, how evil it was, until I really looked into the roots. And now,
me neither.
doing what I do, seeing all the military contractors flocking around the New Age and using the New Age as a platform to get the mind control into people, and it upsets me a lot, because they're deliberately getting this occult knowledge into survivors, and the survivors have already been programmed to move into the New Age, and this is their mind control. Like, this is how they're going to activate survivors to do awful things and lose control and not get the healing that they need. So yeah, definitely look into that one. The thing is, there's just so many areas of like corruption to explore, and I think that's why it's so important having amazing researchers like you, Alessandro, because you really take your time to do an in-depth analysis of it all and present what I feel is a really grounded overview of what you talk about, rather than just, oh yeah, it's this. You really go into a lot of depth with your documentaries. So, I hope that people that are trying to find out about things like the New Age, etc., can go and look at what Alessandro's done, because he's done some really deep dives on those kind of
Thank you.
things
Well,
as well.
I invite you over as well. I don't know if you have gone to the website, but if you go, and I can set you up with an account. Obviously, I do have like 60 or 70 of my episodes are free, so people can see at least the beginning of the series before they decide if they want a membership or not. But for original content, there is 250 episodes.
Wow.
That equals around 25 different documentaries, different subjects. In some of them, I combine things that go hand in hand. For example, with the murder of Natasha Haidt, who was this pedophilia whistleblower in Argentina. Of course, the case was related to Pope Francis and the Jesuits. So in that documentary, it's half about Natasha, and the other half is about exposing Jorge Bergoglio and the Jesuit order and their crimes in South America and in Europe, because they're actually trafficking children to Europe with this minor soccer leagues, and it's just completely nefarious.
Wow.
But besides that, I upload one or two films for free every day on the website. Films that I may or may not agree with, but that's the thing. I give people the chance to see and to look the information they want to see and to decide for themselves. Just like I did. I guess that we all must follow our path in this minefield that is the Truther movement, because you guys, your viewers and your followers, they need to develop their discernment. They cannot depend on us for that. They cannot depend on you. They cannot depend on me, because the day of tomorrow, I might not be here. You might not be here either. And they still need to be able to avoid that deceit. And if they don't train that muscle, that suspicion, that native malice, as I like to call it, like when people tell you something that sounds really far-fetched and you don't question it, you don't have this reaction of, this person
pretty out there.
I mean, at least stop and think about it a little bit. Why this person is giving you this information? For what agenda? For what purpose? Who does he work with? Who does he work for? Does he have a political agenda? is anybody putting money or promises in their heads. You have to look at all those things.
Yeah.
uh, at least I know that nobody's putting any money on my pockets and any ideas on my head besides my wife, which
Me too.
is pretty much expected.
It's better to be poor and in the truth, right? We have God.
Well, that's the thing. I could be, because if
Yeah.
I was working with Nick still nowadays, I would be making bank, because he basically completely sold out after we stopped working together. But I told my wife, hey, I much rather be poor or have to have two jobs and still do this as a hobby than live doing this, making tons of money, but with my conscience on the ground.
No, it's not right. Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
worth it. It's not worth it. And it was already bothering me for close to a year. Close to a year, I wanted to quit and I wanted to do my own thing. But thanks to God and thanks to all the people that support me, now I'm starting fresh, and let's see where it goes.
That's brilliant. I'm so glad that you just stayed with your integrity and followed your guidance, because it's a pressure that we all have on us, like every day, whether you're speaking out publicly and you have a platform, or you're attending a meeting. Like, we all have these pressures on us to accept things that we know are not quite right and are red flags, and it would probably just be easier to go along with it, but we have to stand our ground in every single way. And I know it's kind of been a bit of a lonely journey over the last 2 or 3 years,
It is.
because
Gavin,
I've just been
it
like,
is.
you're corrupt, you're involved in this network, you're like
Yeah.
actually trafficking children, you're in with the black nobility. And so I really had to pull back and just get really clear on what I believe is the most important thing, through prayer and through speaking with God, and do
Exactly.
that. And you know what, once you get over the kind of shock of like there being so much controlled opposition around us, it's good. Like, it's good to be just clear and have that ability to follow what God is telling us to bring forward at this time. So obviously
Exactly.
there's the financial challenges, but that's fine. I would much rather have that than the other challenges
It's
of
part
going
of
to
life.
sell myself out.
I mean, it's part of life, and I
Yeah.
used to be. I guess I was a bit upset about it for a while, at least in the beginning. But now it's like all this weight is off of my shoulders, and I
Yeah.
told my wife I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I wasn't enjoying making films. When it came time to edit the film, I was dreading it, and now I'm finding that enjoyment again. Like this
I
new
love
film
it.
with Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington has been quite an adventure, because I have all the time in the world to do it.
Wow.
Like nobody's paying me to deliver it in a deadline or not. So
Yeah.
I'm able to do it my own way, my own pace, and to just do it my own style. And if people like it, good. And if they don't, well, I guess
Yeah.
I can watch it with my wife for the years to come.
I'm sure they'll love it. I'm sure they'll love it. It's beautiful to see that, you've went through this whole journey of like, having to realize what was around you and all of the threats and the intimidation, etc., because you have had a lot of that, and you've had attacks for exposing, these figures as well. And now it's come
Yes.
full circle, and you're able to do things, as you feel they're meant to be produced. And I think that's beautiful.
It's been good. I appreciate that you can see through that, and for everybody that has seen through that journey and been there for it. It's been I mean, I'm not short of being a complaining guy sometimes, and I understand that I'm a bit of a, I do commend people for stocking up with me through all this, because I guess I can be a bit of a pissy pants sometimes,
Oh,
but aren't we
no.
all?
It's a lot to live through though as well, right? Like, I think it's a lot to take in, that there is these kind of threats and corruption out there, because when you start speaking out, and I'm sure it's the same for people that are, when they start waking up and go into these organized movements by the military intelligence, and or start following all these assets, it's a lot to wake up to, the fact there's someone that you've been working with or following or thought was a good person actually has very nefarious agendas. But it gets easier, right? Like now I'm just like, it doesn't upset me for days or weeks. I'm just like 10 minutes, yeah, another one, next.
But don't you feel it? I mean, when you get that confirmation,
Yeah.
it hurts because it's like, oh, fuck, I
Yeah.
knew it. But at the same time, it's way better than just being there lingering and not being sure. And you're doubting yourself and you're like, did I dismiss this person without any reason? Like, am I just being paranoid? And those are questions that enter my life all the time. I mean, I try. I don't think I've had many falling outs. The falling outs I've had is because they're usually controlled, but also, like in your case, when dealing with survivors, sometimes the way in which you need to handle yourself, the things you need to say, words that you need to avoid, um, we're not trained to do that. We just learn on the go, and sometimes it's just hard because these people, they just need to get one bad feeling about you, one bad thing that you said in the wrong way, for them to just slither away, or get even aggressive towards you, or paranoid or fearful. And that used to happen to me a lot with the satanic ritual abuse survivors that I dealt with in the beginning, because me myself, I wasn't balanced at the time. I wasn't balanced enough as a person. I guess I was more of doing things on a whim, without much thought, and just stop thinking about how to say or formulate a question. And nowadays that just doesn't happen as much. I guess I always try to give people, survivors or not, their own pace. I just, if they want to talk, they want to talk. If they don't want to talk, they don't. And I just tell them, hey, I'll be around. If you change your mind, you can call me anytime. I mean, I'm a private investigator. If you really have a lead, I'm gonna wake up, no matter if it's 2 or 4 a.m. I'm gonna wake up and get your call. But I guess it comes with the bad experiences and the good experiences, that you learn how to manage those things. Me, for example, I cannot wait to see more of your work, and I've been watching a few podcasts this week, but I feel like I'm missing out on a whole spectrum of your work for the previous 2 or 3 years that I need to catch up to, and hopefully we can collaborate in that regard in the future as well.
Absolutely. It's so great just meeting and connecting with you, Alessandro, and sharing your work, because I think your work's so great because it brings so much together. So for people that are just starting to explore different topics, it's like one website that you can go to, and there's a lot of information that is good quality, and it will start giving you, a strong foundation, because that's what we need a strong foundation of knowledge.
Exactly.
So we have the discernment, because once you have that knowledge, you'll be able to listen to these controlled oppositions and just go, oh my God, that's just like full training, like blah, 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 blah. There's nothing there, but you've got to have the good information. And, for me, it's like you have to know, the word of God as well, to be able to distinguish what is antichrist, what is a satanic agenda.
If they're trying to lead you astray from the scripture or from God,
why?
just stay away from it.
Yeah.
Stay away from it as much as you can. And I guess one of the things I must say is that if you watch some of these knuckleheads for entertainment purposes, it's all good. I'm not gonna lie. My wife and I used to watch Ben Shapiro because I just like to mock him. And my wife used to like him, so she was like, "Hey, why are you so mean with him? Why do you hate him so much?" And I'm like, "I just think his eyebrows are funny. What's the problem?" And I enjoy watching Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles sometimes for the conservative banter, but believe me, I don't take what they say as gospel. And
never
even though definitely, and for example, I think it's just an example. What is a Woman? The film by Matt Walsh, I think is a brilliant film, but I still think he works for nefarious people. So
Mm.
if I was to say, hey, what's the what's the real value of such a film if it's put out by this kind of people?
Yeah.
Well, just take out the good of what they do, because we have to admit that sometimes and most times they do put out a good film with great information to hook people in, for people to lower their guard and say, hey, I think I can trust these guys. These guys are the good guys.
Exactly.
And then they start to try to sway you to other things. Well, just get that film, download it, keep it on your collection, and go to the next truther that you like, and just don't get obsessed with one character. Don't don't go around thinking that anyone is going to be your savior, that someone is going to give you top secret information so you can be prepared for the 10 days of darkness and all this nonsense.
Or they're here
There's
to
no such
save the
thing.
world.
Exactly. And it's like, you see all these soccer moms, apparently all of them talk with military intelligence. They all know what's going to happen. They know about the executions and the Gitmo trials and all this nonsense. Don't fall for promises. Don't fall for deadlines. Try to focus on the substance is my advice.
It's so good. That's a really important point too, is just don't get stuck in following that one person, and I think even just be aware, like if you feel like you have an addictive tendency to just follow one person, it's probably because of the frequency and mind control warfare that's in what you're watching that's making you crave it. That's what mind control does. So, mind control, people have this picture of it being, being electrocuted and, horrible abuse. And that is part of it, yes. But they've really upgraded things so much now that it is emotional mind control. They're making you feel good, listening to this rubbish to get you addicted to it. It's like the sugar in Coke. That's like what I look at these controlled assets as. They're just, sprinkling sugar everywhere, so everyone will just keep coming back and listening to that. And that's an hour or 2 hours of your life every day or every week that you could be learning real.
That you will never recover.
Truth. Right? Go to Alessandro's website and start getting some real knowledge under you. So, you'll be able to see what these characters are up to. And I know you have an amazing project that you've been working on flat out over the last few weeks, Alessandro, your Louder Than Love documentary.
Yes.
Would you be able to explain what that's about? Because I have a very surface idea. I kind of had a bit of a dive into this years ago of Chris Cornell and Soundgarden.
When it just had happened,
Yeah, but you've really done a deep dive on it. I'm looking forward to this one.
Well, how about we just watch a sneak peek from the last delivery? Would you like that?
Let's do it.
Loneliness, a little bit of disregard, handful of complaints, but I can't help the fact that everyone can see me scarred. I am what I want you to want, what I want you to feel. And it's like no matter what I do, I can't convince you to just believe this is real. So let go, I'm watching you, turn your back like you always do. Face away and pretend that I'm not. I'll be here cause you're all that I got. I can't feel the way I did before. Don't turn your back on me, I won't be ignored. A little bit insecure, a little unconfident, cause you don't understand. I do what I can, but sometimes it don't make sense. I true never wanna say, but I've never had a doubt. It's like no matter what I do, I can't convince you for once just to hear me out. So let go, watching you, turn your back like you always do. Face away and pretend that I'm not. I'll be here cause you're all that I got. on me.
So my background is I grew up from very humble beginnings. Put myself through college, graduated with a degree, an undergrad degree in veterinary medicine, total science nerd over here. And I was just kind of having fun in my 20s. I was a long-term substitute teacher. I moved to New York on a whim. My friend called me to a party, and that's how I met the love of my life. And I met Chester, and from the day we met, we were never apart. We were both very emotionally unhealthy in our own different ways. And over our time together, we were together for 12 and a half years, we both grew. He struggled with addiction and depression, two things that I have never struggled with. Although I do have my own demons, I did have my hardships growing up, we just handled them in very different ways. So I came from a point of complete, for lack of a better term, ignorance to a situation. But over time, I came to learn that taking care of your mental health is, as I said before, as important as taking care as your physical health. When Chester died, it was a complete surprise. I mean, just, my husband had in the past, he had attempted suicide. But, I thought to myself, it was because he was wasted. He was, this or that. And, so when he did pass, I thought, very naively, I thought we were in the clear. We had a very dear friend, Chris Cornell, take his own life. And I felt that, okay, Chester sees, what Vicky and the kids, were godparents to their children, what they're going through, and this will never happen. So we went on a family trip to our cabin. That's the video that Jim showed you. My husband was full of life. He had to go back home early to work. He was very excited to be promoting the new album and doing stuff. So he was happy. Gave me a kiss goodbye, gave the kids a kiss goodbye, and I never saw him again. The phone call I received that next morning was life-altering. My children's lives were altered forever. And in the travel time, which felt like 1,000 years to get from Sedona back home, I knew that I had to walk into the home where my husband took his life, and I had to normalize that for my children, because they were going to respond to how I reacted. I walked into that house, and I walked up to the room that it happened in. I made my peace with it, and then I made it as normal as I can. And that was the beginning of my journey of doing what I can do to normalize mental health, to normalize it's not always okay. He can't be another rock star gone bad. Tragic. That can't be why. His death has to be the tipping point, has to show people we could seem so normal, so okay, and then not be okay in an instant. I will share with you, the night my husband took his life, or the early morning, he had been sober for almost 6 months, which was amazing for him. He had a lot of shame in the past when he had relapsed. Shame that he had just begun to share with me in the couple months before he died. Shame I didn't even know a person could have. So when he passed, and I learned that there were 2 empty beer bottles in the room, I knew he had relapsed. But I also knew he wasn't so intoxicated, out of his mind, like I would have thought. I knew instantly that drink triggered that shame, triggered a lifetime of unhealthy neural pathways. And this is what I want to get through to as many as I can.
Talinda Bennington is right about one thing. Chester's death must be the tipping point so we can all become aware of what goes on behind the curtains in Hollywood. As the widow herself admitted, she met the Linkin Park frontman at some party after a friend invited her. Talinda Ann Bentley ventured into modeling and was featured in the college girls section of Playboy magazine. She became a regular fixture in the magazine's spring issues for 2 years, and as it happens with several Playboy models, she was an escort as well. For those unaware of the trade, escort services and prostitution are often used interchangeably, but there are differences. While escorting is legal in some jurisdictions, if a client pays for sex, then they have committed a crime and most likely violated human trafficking laws. From what we know, in December 2004, Talinda was hired as a party girl by the infamous Dr. Nick. According to the testimonies we showed you, the same night the couple met, the widow slept with Ryan Chuck first and then Chester. The couple started dating right away, and Talinda moved into the frontman's apartment within a week. As often happens to these celebrities, the Playboy model entered Chester's life during a low point, as he had just divorced his first wife, Samantha. Talinda and Chester got married on December 31st, 2005, and she gave birth to their first child 3 months later. Adding insult to injury, Ryan Chuck was the singer's best man.
Come on,
All I know
you
is
want
that
to
the
go?
door opened and a couple girls got out and said, do you want to come with us? And really, Chester looks, he's like,
Okay.
I'd love to, like
There we
autopilot. Just kicks right in. Duh.
I get into like a dumb anytime I'm in band mode, I kind of basically do whatever I'm told. I'm like a sheep. I'm more like a dog. It's like,
So it wasn't that Yuzette and I were special. It was that someone just said, "Come this way."
well,
And
no,
your girls.
We went, "Let it." I'm in.
it was a female voice, and the fact I'm in band mode, which basically makes me like a dog.
Point and sniff.
Yes. Okay. That's what happens to me.
During the production of this series, another family member decided to speak out. Jamie Bennington is the eldest son of the Linkin Park singer and his ex-girlfriend, Elka Brand. During the last 6 years, the firstborn had been a strong denier of any theories exploring the murder of his father. As of October 2023, he has changed his stance dramatically and is now fully convinced Chester Bennington was murdered. Pay close attention to the language and the symbolism.
Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Jamie Bennington. I'm 27 years old. I am the firstborn son of Chester Bennington, and over the last 6 years I've gone from a firm supporter of his suicide to someone who's absolutely convinced that he did not take his own life, and that instead he was killed by something or someone for some purpose. And I will be investigating that. What the actual fuck? I know it was a long time ago, a couple years at this point, that I came to you for help when I approached Uncle Mark about my situation. When I tried to communicate with him that I was dealing with certain mental illness and that I was being cannibalized by my own family and that I needed him. I wanted his help. I wanted to be seen by him. You remember when he weaponized my mental illness against me and belittled me, and you said, "Oh, it's just Uncle Mark, you know how he is." And I said, "No, I don't. This has never been my experience with Uncle Mark. He's always said I can come to him and ask him for help and let him know that I need something, and when I did, he brutalized me, and you let him do it." To make matters worse, you promised to call me back years ago, and you haven't. You lied to me, and now you're sneaking around my stories, not commenting on anything, knowing full well that you were already aware of everything that I'm saying now, because I gave you and your sister a copy of my 400-page investigatory manuscript. And according to Kim, you read it. This is not okay. I said I would call out my mom and anybody else who does some weird shit. Ryan, you're right there with Auntie Lisa, but right now I'm focusing on Auntie Lisa. This is unacceptable. You don't get to play both sides. It's not nice. And also, I don't feel safe around you. What's even funnier about this engagement, okay, it's that much more funny, is that within the last 4 days, I've seen Anna Shinoda, Sean Dowdell, and Samantha Bennington all pop up on my story, meaning they showed up as viewers in the stats. They didn't watch what I had to say. They didn't stick around. They didn't comment on anything. In fact, it's more like they entered into the room, they just like opened the door and they're like, "Oh shit," and fucking walked out because they were like, "Oh my God, I did not mean to walk in on that. I cannot be seen here. What the fuck? No." And that is hilarious to me, because how long do you think it's going to be before they realize that they've already been burned more than they realize? Honey, I've been saying things since March. Your ignorance is bliss method will not save you. So this is to all the little snakes in the grass. No matter how big you think you are, I see you. I do not appreciate your engagement, and I request that you stand up with your chest out and your big boy pants, and you begin to engage with the conversation. Because if you do not, it will reflect more on you than it will reflect on me. And if you do not, you will be digging your own hole. This is a place for conversation, for clarity. If you choose to acknowledge that it exists and choose to refuse to engage with it, then what can I say except for good luck? After all, it is my life that you played with. After all, I did warn all of you that this was coming. Sean knows, Anna knows, Samantha knows, Talinda knows, everybody knows. It's the most untalked about, well-known thing in the entire Bennington universe that I'm here doing this, because guess what? Though I may have been silent on social media, I've been working real hard behind the scenes. I've been trying to mend relationships. I've been trying to find truth. I've been trying to find out who's on what side. And there are people who have taken a definitive step. They have drawn a line, just as I have, saying exactly what they stand for, what they're willing to engage with, and what they're not. So it's the least you could do, right? For those who might find this interaction a bit forward, a bit spiky, I want to clarify. I have been speaking to Sean Dowdell since the time that my father died. Twice I have told him what I've been through with Talinda and everybody else, and twice he has chosen to ignore me. Twice he has chosen to work with Talinda anyways. Twice he has brutalized me and covered me up. Whether he wants to admit it or not, it's what happened. I spent over a month describing to Anna my situation and my plan moving forward. I gave her a chance to clarify. I gave her a chance to take accountability. She did not. In fact, she left me on red. And Talinda, well, Talinda's known that I was coming to this point. She's known this since 2020, since my 24th birthday. With that being said, I think it is important to separate Samantha from the other three, because the truth is that Samantha and I don't have a relationship. That's something I'm actively trying to mend right now. Draven and I don't have a relationship. Again, something I'm working on mending right now. And so she didn't necessarily know that this is what I was doing, but she does know my attitude. She does know how I feel about a lot of these things, because the last interaction we had way back when I was recording for Amends, it was pretty telling. There was no question of if I would talk. It was a question of when I would talk. And so Auntie Lisa, Ryan DeMarty, Talinda Bennington, Sean Dowdell, Anna Shinoda, Mike Shinoda, Samantha Bennington, you name it, you all knew. So don't come crying to me like, don't be unfair to me. All right, I got three things. I'm going to dish them right now, and then I'm going to move on. One, Chester came to Sean for a fuck ton of money before he died, and Sean gave it to him. Two, Chester and Talinda at the time of Chester's death were once again in the process of separating. Yeah, I said once again. And three, Sean Dowdell says he currently has copies of texts from Chester claiming that Mike Shinoda and the other guys in the band disrespected him for the last time, and he was sick of it, and he was leaving Linkin Park. Ouch. Some of the worst times in my entire life have occurred in the last 6 years. My family has been destroyed from the inside out. I've been forcibly disconnected from my siblings, my inheritance, my ability to express and communicate. To top that all off, I'm regularly being bombarded with insane shit, like Sean Dowdell trying to lure me into a fight in March, and even my own mother threatening to take my life in August of 2021.
Whatever you may think of Jamie's intentions, one thing is certain. The children of those who have been murdered and victimized have a rightful spot in this movement to expose the truth, and every single one of them must be allowed to tell their story and survive their process and growth at their own pace. I support all of them, and as someone whose father was also murdered, albeit in a different way, I stand with their cause and empathize with their pain. I'm sure Jamie will keep exposing truths we might not be able to include in this series. Follow him on Instagram if you want to keep up to date. From what he said so far, we can gather several important leads. Let's address the first two. Number 1. Chester and Talinda were in the process of another separation, meaning there were previous separations, except this time was an actual divorce. According to John Nair, it was the affair between the latter and Mike Shinoda that was the last drop for Chester. Number 2. Sean Dowdell, drummer for Chester's other musical project, Grey Days, confessed to Jamie he has texts from the Linkin Park frontman saying that Mike Shinoda and the rest of the band had disrespected him for the last time and that he wanted to quit the band. Jamie also mentions that the deleted tweets about the affair between Talinda and Mike are part of what he discussed. Given her previous history, it's not shocking that Talinda Bennington cheated on her husband, but for many Linkin Park fans, one of the hardest pills to swallow and digest is the level of betrayal, as it happened with Chester's bandmate, Mike Shinoda. This Instagram post by David Kinsler from March 23, 2022, gives us a better idea. Dave was the video director of Linkin Park's 2011 music video for the song Iridescent. Tonight, in 2015, I took these photos. I remember just being at the show to see my friends play instruments, sing, and drink a lot of booze, if I can be honest. 15 minutes before stage, Chester and I quietly sneaked out, as usual, to do the deed around the corner behind the venue and share an American Spirit cigarette, because he knew I was holding, and as usual, we succeeded without anyone knowing. He told me about working on a clothing design he's working on for the auto company Porsche. He said he'd give me a sneak peek soon. We also spoke about divorce and how hard it can be. Little did he know. I remember he grabbed my kettle and Sprite with an orange in it, grabbed a sip, told me to grab some snaps, smiled, and ran back inside. I got credentials that night from Melina, and she gave me her Canon 5D and 7D with a fish eye lens after song 2. When you take photos as press, you only get the first 3 songs, and she gave me her camera for the third. This is what I got. He was angry that night for reasons I won't disclose, but it showed. I don't like telling or posting personal stories as much as I used to do anymore, as I've been criticized for it by subhumans I used to call friends. But tonight, I felt it was right. I fucking hate that he's gone. The conversation between the musician and the director took place on April 30th, 2015, during the Stone Temple Pilots show in Philadelphia, and as we can tell, Chester Bennington had been considering divorce for a long while. The legendary band from San Diego, California, recruited Chester as their vocalist in 2013 after parting ways with Scott Weiland, and together they released the High Rise EP in 2013. Chester had been a lifelong fan of their music, and to join them on stage was a dream come true for him. That's just a short preview.
Thank you so much for sharing a preview with us. I had no idea his son was speaking out yet.
Well, he just started last month, so just in time for the release, I guess.
Wow. That's just incredible that you're already working on this project, because you've already been working on it for many, many months, right? And then that's just happened in the middle.
Yes, I actually, that's the reason why I started doing this. This whole thing started for me when these 2 guys got killed. I said, there's something very strange here. And that's when I found out about all these things that I wasn't aware of, Pizzagate and child sex trafficking. I mean, I was aware about, chemtrails and the New World Order and the secret families and all this, but it was more like an entertainment kind of thing that I watched, after hours to fall asleep. And I mean, I grew up basically watching professional wrestling and Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura, so it was a weird combination. But then this happened to these guys, and I said, well, I guess this is where I come in. A lot of people have already released some other, I guess, projects. I guess Natalie Denise released a 10-series investigatory podcast about it. I collaborated with her on the first episode. I also did this thing with my previous partner, Nick, in which, he kind of altered the script a bit, and I was a bit unhappy with it. But now I have the chance to do it my way, and it's going to be 7 more episodes. It's going to be 10 1-hour episodes. So it's very, very deep investigation.
Deep dive. Incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's a good showcase of how much research you go into, and you're just so thorough with connecting everything. Like, I've learned so much from some of the videos I've watched that you've created, and also your content. And speaking of that, before we finish up, would you be able to share where people can find you, and if they're interested in the release of your Louder Than Love, when that will be?
Sure. People can find me mostly on my website, totaldisclosure.net. I'm also on Instagram, very active as Total Disclosure 1. Same handle on Telegram, and same handle on Twitter, or X as it's called now. I'm Louder Than Love 1. It's very hard to get used to that one. But yes, I'm on Facebook, but I have like 25 followers because I just opened it like a week ago. And same on YouTube. mostly on BitChute, Rumble, and my own website. I'm trying to keep away from the big platforms
The censored ones.
for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your work, just in general, and thank you for spending some time with us today. Like, I think it's so
Thank you.
important, these conversations, talking about what to be aware of by, you know, people that have had that firsthand experience, and hopefully, you know, we can all get that good foundation of information under us so we can spot these controlled opposition characters and just move through them quicker, get on with the truth, and get on with, you know, creating real change in our world. So
Thank you.
I just
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much for
Gabby,
all
for your
your
work as
efforts.
well.
Oh, thank you.
You do an amazing podcast, and I really have to say I enjoy the way you carry on with your interviews. It clearly it's clearly your thing. You got it.
Thank you. I feel like, you know, this is the last thing I would have expected to be doing with my life or
Me
at this
too.
time.
Me
But
too,
God
to be
just,
honest.
you know, was like, yep, we're just going to take you over here. And that's what's happened.
Yes. No,
I'm
yes.
sure that's
It's
what's
quite,
happened
I
to you
never
as well.
predict. Yeah. Who's gonna nobody, and especially my friends, like they would have never put me in this place 10 years
Yeah.
before. They probably must be like, I don't know what's going
Who
on
is
with
this
that guy.
person? Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I will pop all of Alessandro's links in the video description so it's nice and easy to find. And yeah, I would just recommend get on over there and start learning. And most of all, we, you know, surround you in our prayers. Alessandro, I know you've had some targeting attempts and just people being nasty lately. So, you know, sending lots of love and protection, and, you know, may God always bless and protect you and guide you in every moment. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you, Gabby. You as well, and God bless the audience as well.